Hello and welcome back to our show. Today we're going to be talking about journalism, the truth in journalism, and a couple of things that have kind of come up. And I wanted to share this with you. Let's see. So let me just kind of start off by saying that we're looking at a new presidency and we're coming in hopeful, optimistic that there are going to be some great changes, but there's still a lot of people that are very angry because they feel like their votes have been suppressed. And now by even mentioning that, I realized that I could get this account banned, and we're watching that happen across YouTube. Just another friend of mine just got permanently banned from Facebook today. And we're at a point right now where you can't even question what's going on. And we're not seeing that there is truth in journalism. So there are a number of things that are taking place right now, and many of them are flying under the radar of the mainstream media, or they're just not talking about them. They're choosing not to talk about them, or they just don't know about them, which I find really hard to believe. So along with this, we see division. We see people are on two sides about masks. You either need to have them or you're a sheep. If you don't wear them, you're a biological terrorist. If you choose to just, not buy into the science, they say. We see people who want to open everything back up and those that think that we need to keep everything closed down. Parents want their kids to go back to school, and there's others that are very adamant that they want to homeschool their children from now on. And so as we know that a house divided does not stand. And right now in America, the whole world is watching, and some major players like China, who is celebrating the exit of Donald Trump, to see a communist China celebrating, being very happy to see President Trump out of office with a new administration should probably raise some eyebrows. And we know that people are seeking the truth, but where do they find it? Mainstream media, social media. We know that those are not reliable sources. I just believe that most journalism has gone dormant or dead in the 80s. And the perspective, just knowing that what we're seeing also unfolding here is just biblical prophecy, especially in the last year with the Abraham Accord being signed again, with Israel being placed in, Jerusalem, the center of that, what President Trump did. And we know that these are God's chosen people, according to him in the Bible. And so some of you guys coming in here are coming over from, crossing over from the scriptures that we're studying in Daniel, Ezekiel, Jude, Revelation, all of these things that very much line up with what we're seeing today. So to speak the same way about, the final days, it says we're not going to know when these things are taking place, but we're going to kind of know the seasons. And Jesus said, you look at the sky and you know what the weather's going to be like, but you can't figure out what's happening. And so I am on multiple forums, online boards, finding information. A lot of it's being declassified, as well as information that pertains to us as a country. And I think that it would be in our best interest to be aware so that we can kind of prepare others for the things that we're seeing and the things that are going to happen. And I also want to just say, don't get this twisted. First of all, I'm a citizen of heaven and then an American citizen. And as such, I have a voice. We have that freedom to share the hope that we have. For me, that's the hope that I have in Jesus first and foremost, but knowing that there's nothing that is a surprise here that we're seeing. We might be surprised. We might be a little confused, but God is not. And also to my fellow American citizens that are dumbfounded as to what is happening. What's happening is we're in an information and data war. And I know that's a bold statement. However, if you play chess or you've know anything about the game, the world is like a giant chessboard, and there are different games taking place at the moment with major players. And the problem with this is that the winner of each match is gaining more power and profit over you and I, as well as the rest of the world. And now, if this sounds ominous or like a conspiracy, then I urge you to just you probably don't want to watch. But biblical prophecy, which you may know, shares with us future events from the past, which is there to build our faith, build our confidence in God. John 14:29 says, now I've told you before it comes to pass so that you will believe. So although I'm sharing this information with you about what's happening in the world, I want to let you know that we're not trying to figure things out using the Bible as a mystical fortune cookie or to uh, make you afraid or to run out and become preppers or anything like that. That does not reveal a true trust in God, but rather a fear. And I want you to know that God's people have absolutely nothing to fear. The intensity and the frequency of tragedy in the world and national events today should concern all of us. And Jesus himself spoke of the signs of the times, certain telltale signs that correspond to a crisis-filled close of this age, called in the Bible the time of the end. And so I think that it's, good for us to understand the nature of crucial signs. And most of biblical prophecy is dual, meaning it has two fulfillments, a preliminary fulfillment and then a greater secondary fulfillment, often centuries later. And it's possible to comprehend the significance of key events and trends in our crisis-prone culture, our society right now. And historically, one tribe of Israel possessed a remarkable comprehension of the current affairs of its days. And so you can look at that in 1 Chronicles 12:32. But now that nearly 2,000 years have passed since Jesus' first coming, there are some ominous trends in the world today. And whether we want to see them or not, it's just indicating that this age of man is kind of coming to a close. And so we can only really repeat what Jesus's reply was to his first century apostles. It's not for you to know the time and the seasons which the Father has put in his own authority. It's Acts 1:7. Their chief concern, per Christ's instructions, was to be preaching the true gospel. So when Christ does come to earth, that his servants should be found diligently doing the work that God has given them to the best of their ability. That's in Matthew 22, verses 44 through 46. And as true Christians, we are supposed to be enthusiastically anticipating the second coming and establishing a kingdom on earth. And our world right now fails to grasp the significance of certain tragic events, signs that will increase with, just the different nations. They will afflict the nation. So as we discuss these things, we're bringing in current events, global news, and the things that mainstream media and those sources that we once could trust that are no longer speaking on these things. We're sharing those. And so today I wanted to come in here and just talk to you about journalism, the truth in journalism, and what is the purpose of journalism. And as you can see here, as we have these little tickers at the very bottom, number one, it's to inform us. We should be informed. Current events is the most obvious purpose of journalism. You want to know what happened at the city council meeting, or how a company that you invested in is doing on the stock market, or if you won last night's game, typically you turn on the news. It's not just local. There's certain policies that are playing out at the nation's capital, or natural disasters and all of these things. And it's called news because what you're learning about is news in the world. The second reason is because we're to be bearing witness, right? It's the simplest definition. It means to show that something exists or is true. It means having firsthand knowledge as an eyewitness. And so to be a witness bearer means to be there. And that's not free. What we're looking at right now, and we can go look back at different things like the 2009 Iranian presidential election, known as the Green Revolution. There were things that journalists that were there were describing what they saw. They described the process, because governments and those governments that are, I have to watch my words, kind of playing puppet master to the news, to the world, to set themselves up in a light or in a way that would make things look better than what they are, or just not truthfully. And then the other reason is the watchdog role. The purpose of journalism is to bring transparency to the affairs of individuals and the institutions in power and hold them accountable. And we're not really seeing that. We're seeing that pretty much you can fling mud without having any facts, that you can make assumptions, which we're seeing right now. What's happened, from October. I've shown examples yesterday of, statements by now current President Joe Biden. I will not be getting rid of fracking. And then yesterday we see that this is actually taking place. But we have fact checkers now that are going to tell us, the thought police that are going to tell us that this is not so. And if you do your own research and you go in to see who is in charge of those fact checking, you're going to understand that we're missing a lot of context to things. And beyond reporting what happened, there's a sense of why. There's a meaning to it. The context provides a frame of reference for understanding these current events. And it's the bridge that leads us from just raw facts to a deeper understanding. And then the thing that is kind of the most of a threat right now in what we're seeing is setting the tone for public debate. We're seeing that there are people that are not able to be as vocal in public debate because of some censorship. And at best, criticism and compromise are grounded in facts and intellectual honesty while respectfully acknowledging various points of view in a very balanced way. That sounds like what we should expect from our news. And we have a responsibility. You and I and anyone else that's out there have a responsibility. Citizens must set aside their own prejudice and judge the work of journalists on the basis of whether it contributes to their ability to make informed part in shaping their society. The citizen has an obligation to approach the news with an open mind, not just a desire that the news reinforces an existing opinion. We have a responsibility as citizens not to narrow our focus. We must not simply indulge ourselves in subjects that entertain or affirm our views, but also seek out the critical, challenging information that citizens require. The responsibility to focus on what matters. That is what we're discussing. And so there's some things out here right now that we're not really seeing. And most of you guys are not news junkies. You're not searching for all of these, world events and all of these things that are happening. And you guys are inundated. We're inundated. Even myself, as working with researchers and finding that there's so much information that's out there, waking up to, thousands of posts, social media, and then also algorithms that hide things. There is just a lot of stuff out there. Now, you'll know that this page, I am not for one side or the other. And this is really the reason that we have this platform, is because I'm not very trusting of any politicians. I've watched, throughout my lifetime of them making promises and not keeping them. I do, however, will give credit when credit is due. But right now, as we are coming together as a nation, what we're seeing is that many people are wondering exactly what the heck happened back in November. And we're seeing some headlines today that we're just kind of scratching our head going for, the most popular person really in American history. If you look at the numbers and you look at the figures and you just look at them objectively, you have to kind of scratch your head and go, what in the world is going on? And why are we being spoon-fed this? And it's just kind of disturbing. And there's all of these things that they're puzzle pieces that all fit together. And one of those that I wanted to kind of bring to your attention, if you're not aware, is something that's called the Great Reset. You guys are going to start hearing more about the Great Reset in the coming days, weeks, months, because it's been around for a while. And what I wanted to share with you about this is that just, last year during June, what we're seeing through, well, we could see it from the royal family. And that's one of the videos that I want to share with you guys here really quickly, just for you to take a look and to see what it is that we're not seeing coming across all of the channels. We're not seeing them we're not seeing them. So let me see. Let me bring this up real quickly. I want to make sure that I get the right one, because there's a couple of them here. And these are going to be great for you guys to go back and look at in your own time, and then share with those that may not be aware. Marge, can you see the screen? Just want to make sure that it's popping up.
I sure can.
You sure can. Okay, so we're going to just go to this.
We have an incredible opportunity to create entirely new sustainable industries, investing in nature as the true engine of our economy.
The current global crisis has disrupted every aspect of our lives, but it has also presented us with an extraordinary opportunity, a chance to reset and accelerate efforts to improve the state of our world.
Changing our current trajectory will require bold and imaginative action, together with determination and decisive leadership. In order to secure our future and to prosper, we need to evolve our economic model, putting people and planet at the heart of global value creation. If there is one critical lesson we have to learn from this crisis, we need to put nature at the heart of how we operate. We are on the verge of catalytic breakthroughs that will alter our view of what is possible and profitable within the framework of a sustainable future. We need nothing short of a paradigm shift, one that inspires action at revolutionary levels and pace. We simply cannot waste any more time. The only limit is our willingness to act. And the time to act is now.
Now, I mean, who doesn't want to get behind that, right? I mean, that sounds like it's a very wonderful way to, get things back on track. If you don't get on board with that plan, I mean, you must hate the environment. You must be, a truly horrible person. But here's the deal. If you were to go and do a little bit more research on this, and this is one of the things that they're going to call conspiracy, which they did back in December of 2020. We're already starting to hear language of this called Build Back Better, right? I don't know if you've heard that from our current president at the moment. However, that is one of the things that is going to be stated over and over and over again here soon. And so let me just share this with you guys really quickly too. Let's see.
President-elect Joe Biden is weeks away from taking office, but his presidency already has a growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset. The theory accuses Mr. Biden of playing a part in a global economic plan that will ultimately lead to a dystopian society. The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy. To talk more about the so-called Great Reset, we have CBSN technology reporter Dan Patterson. Hi, Dan. Boy, the conspiracy theories are coming fast and furious these days. I can't keep up. So can you explain how the Great Reset conspiracy started and where this phrase actually came from?
Yeah, so this is kind of a mishmash of a number of different conspiracy theories, Tanya, and they all kind of borrow from each other. And some of them have been floating around since the very early days of the pandemic. So the conspiracy alleges an end to global capitalism and a post-apocalyptic future where those who resist the COVID vaccine will be imprisoned. It borrows or takes from Biden's Build Back Better campaign and then kind of amalgamates it with a conspiracy theory about Bill Gates and his plans to vaccinate and track everyone with a secret tracker, along with part of a New World Order conspiracy run by the World Economic Forum, who actually have COVID response white papers, policy papers written called the Great Reset. Now, this had nothing to do with the conspiracy, but they kind of took all of those components and mashed it together into this uber conspiracy. The ironic part is, if you've never heard of the World Economic Forum, it's a small think tank organization that publishes white papers and policy papers, and they throw events and conferences. One of their events in Davos every year features speakers who are often world leaders or corporate leaders. When you walk through Davos, it's almost impossible to find a socialist. These are some of the preeminent capitalists in the world. So it's a really interesting conspiracy that is kind of evolving in the face of reality.
Right. It's interesting that the leap went from, the World Economic Forum that, as you said, sort of celebrates capitalism on one level to, creating this capitalism on one level to creating this theory that's going to bring it down on a global level. What exactly is Mr. Biden's alleged role in this, and how did entangling him in it come about?
So President-elect Biden's actual policy is about rebuilding the U.S. economy. And there are a number of tentpoles that have been articulated, and he has recently announced an economic team. It's pretty easy to go and vet and read more about this information. This plot takes the Biden slogan and then alleges that the president-elect will use former Obama staffers to reset capitalism, and that Biden is actually in control of this plot or this scheme to take over capitalism and replace it with socialism. Again, they use his policy papers and his Build Back Better policies to come up with this idea that Biden is somehow taking over the world.
So you and I have discussed before how a lot of these conspiracy theories are fueled by social media and the internet. That certainly helps to explain some of their popularity, or at least, people probably wouldn't have heard of a lot of these things otherwise. But why is it that people are so willing to believe in these global conspiracies? Why are they so suspicious of institutions? What is that saying about the society on a larger level that people are so fearful and suspicious of their own government?
Well, Tanya, it's hard for me to say why each individual feels the way they do. But look, our government has given people a lot of reasons to distrust them, going back through most of the 20th century. However, what we're talking about here is a kind of distrust of institution on a very large scale, an unprecedented scale. And what we know about 2016, one of the goals of our chief adversary, Russia, was to kind of sow seeds of doubt. They used propaganda and disinformation to seed information or seed social media, the kind of the fissures of pre-existing cracks. Some of these cracks were about race relations. Some of these cracks had to do with economic relations. Some of these cracks had to do with smaller fissures that are harder for us to identify. But we know that our adversaries kind of planted some of these seeds and worked those seams. But what we also know is that a lot of the disinformation, at least according to people like recently fired CISA chief Chris Krebs, is that a number of the people in the president's own administration pulled open those fissures. So these cracks were started in 2016, and then disinformation on social media kind of amplified or widened those gaps. So, I don't know why people believe what they believe, but I do know that social media does a very good job of kind of siloing us into particular groups. And when we are in these groups, confirmation bias can take over, and that feeds those fissures, those cracks. So these are loopholes, exploits, and they're often used by those who have political motives.
Right. It's interesting to me, though, and I guess it takes a deeper dive, why there is such fertile ground for this misinformation. You and I could discuss this ad nauseum, as I'm sure we will, Dan, but it seems to me that it points to some larger deficiencies that we have to try and figure out. But in any case, Dan Patterson, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, Tanya.
So
this entrepreneur brand logo was done by a top freelance.
Let's get rid of that. As we see that, you see that what is being shared is that this was predated, and that was let me go back just to double check the date on that. It's not giving it to me. I think it was back in October. And so what you heard there was that there is a part of this conspiracy, this lie, that the Obama administration is going to be brought back in. And so who is in the Biden administration? Just according to Al Jazeera, let's see, we've got Joe Biden's team will include Obama veterans, longtime aides and allies, as well as women and people of color. And so what we're hearing back in October, just like we did with there will be no more fracking on October, was it 19th? Yesterday, we heard him say that he's putting an end to fracking. So what was happening in October and was being labeled as conspiracy theory, and we were being told, absolutely, this is not going to happen. No way, no shape, no form, no how, happened. We also were told that the administration was not going to be a carbon copy of Obama's, yet right now we're seeing that he's named several people in key positions in his White House cabinet and other positions in his administration, some that have yet to be confirmed. But we see, Kamala. We're seeing, Blinken, who's yet to be confirmed. He's a confidant of Biden's, and he has a lot of foreign policy experience. He served under the Bill Clinton administration, and he was the Deputy Secretary of State under President Barack Obama. So we also have Ron Klain. He's a longtime Biden aide who previously worked as chief of staff when he was vice president. So again, he was appointed as the Ebola czar under the Obama administration, and he's expected to have a prominent role in the Biden administration. So we see these things that we're being told by the news outlets that are conspiracy are in fact, they're playing out. And so although we don't put a lot of weight to crazy conspiracies, what happens when these things that are labeled conspiracy by journalism, our journalists and our news and our mainstream media that are playing out after they told us a million times that this is not going to happen? What are your takes on that, Marge?
I actually fight the urge to interject when she asked the question about why the conspiracy theorists don't trust their government.
Well, I mean, we can look at the White House and see that there was 10,000 downvotes for the inauguration, and then by morning there was like 3,000. So I don't know. I mean, does that give anybody reason to question or to be doubtful of what we've been spoon-fed? I mean, surely something's happening.
It's ample reason.
Well, I just think that
and the fact that they don't want to talk about it.
Well, and the fact is that we're moving into an area where you cannot talk about it because we're seeing people that are being outed left and right for even questioning. And so for even saying, wait a second, you guys said back in October that this wasn't going to happen and it happened. You know, how are they going to backtrack that? And most of the time, it's not even a backtracking. It's just bury it and cover it. You know, but here we have the internet that is, kind of showing us that we're not forgetting. A lot of people are awake to what's happening. And this is another video that I want to pull up for you guys that I just think is interesting. Let me bring this up for you guys really quickly.
Important reset in respect of the climate crisis, as he calls it. Klaus Schwab has a slightly different emphasis.
Here, let me just bring this back here to what I found most interesting here.
Frequently about what he refers to as the Great Reset. Now, the thing that one finds that all of the people who speak about the Great Reset have in common is that there are similar characteristics in their vision of what lies ahead. The one is inevitably, I suppose, a desire to dictate a new dispensation in regard to the climate crisis. In this regard, one of the other proponents of the Great Reset, none other than Prince Charles, has repeatedly said that this is an opportunity for us as a world to undertake this important reset in respect of the climate crisis, as he calls it. Klaus Schwab has a slightly different emphasis.
Kat, you muted yourself and that muted the video.
The result of some form of world authority.
Here we go.
Now, the first question that would naturally occur to one is, by what authority does he speak? Whoever elected him to speak on behalf of what he perceives to be the future of the world? Whoever authorized him to speak in such strident terms? Well, the answer is he authorized himself. It seems to me, from the bit of research that I've done, that he initiated the idea of the World Economic Forum, and from that has grown a hidden authority. And that hidden authority is now beginning to make these ever more strident demands. In this connection, I saw recently an article. In fact, it was a video involving precisely these issues. And one of the visuals that was made available was a visual of a poster, a Soviet-style poster, which contained these words: "You will own nothing and you will be happy." I think those words require some reflection. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Well, happiness sounds like a very benign and benevolent concept. But in order to get there, in order to achieve this nirvana, one will have to give up one's ownership. One will have to give up the idea of personal ownership. And of course, inevitably, one will have to give up the idea of personal and individual liberty, because liberty and the right to property go hand in hand. So, in fact, what we have here is a Soviet-style command. I don't know upon whose authority that poster was put up. The video didn't deal with that. It simply showed it as part of the visual on an analysis of what lies in the future in regard to this crisis, which is now being exploited for ulterior purposes. But what is quite obvious is that it is a consequence of the philosophy of the one world, which is a philosophy which is at least 100 years old, and which included such notables as Bertrand Russell. Now, you will recall that Bertrand Russell was probably almost certainly regarded as the foremost English philosopher of the last century. What he had in mind was that the world should devolve into a single world state where everybody would be equal. But of course, as the communist experiment has already demonstrated.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. I just need to sign in again here. Sorry, on the laptop. You can keep speaking. I just need to use the laptop. Sorry.
What has happened?
I need to sign into Zoom. I've kicked the others on.
Do you want to do that?
Thanks. Sorry about that, everyone.
There's a small interruption. An egalitarian, a one world of equality, an egalitarian one world, inevitably goes hand in hand with totalitarianism, and that inevitably gives rise to a total loss of liberty, of every conceivable liberty. Bertrand Russell was undeterred by any of this. In fact, he was one of the English academics and intellectuals who really regarded the Soviet system with some admiration. Among others, there was George Bernard Shaw, who had a similar attitude in this regard. This is what Bertrand Russell proposed. He said that what is required is that as this new system, this brave new world is set up, we will need to do a division of the world into different localities, not nations, but localities, which is based upon convenience and usefulness and utility and so on. And those localities will then be audited for population and for their requirements. And this audit will then be placed on record, and it will form the ground rules of future behavior in regard to each of the localities and the individuals living within those localities. The food of the world, said Russell, would then be distributed by a central authority. Well, no surprises there. And the central authority would distribute the food according to the population and the population intensity of each of these locations at the time when the audit was done. Then said Russell that if any of these localities should exceed the assigned population growth rate for the various localities over a given period of time, they would not receive more food on that account. They would receive the allocation which they were justly entitled to. And therefore, they would find themselves short of food. Well, it wasn't necessary for Russell to spell out the consequence of that iniquitous philosophy. What Russell had in mind was that each locality would be starved into submission, or at least that starvation was a perfectly legitimate device. So we find the phenomenon of authoritarian dictatorship in every conceivable intellectual pursuit. And there's no doubt that Marx was an intellectual of sorts. There's no doubt that various individuals, such as Russell and George Bernard Shaw, were clearly intellectual, but that didn't save them from falling into this dreadful Marxist authoritarian trap. Now, if anybody should think that this dystopian vision that I've sketched is too bad to be true, then just consider the situation in South Africa. Interestingly enough, Ramaphosa and the ANC have been perfectly candid about their program, about what they have in mind. They haven't hidden, for instance, the ideal for them of expropriation without compensation. They haven't hidden in any way at all. In fact, it's been reaffirmed from time to time. The demand for a national democratic revolution, all of which is Marxist language. All of this is, in fact, written into their policies, and they repeat these policies from time to time. What is surprising is that people do not take these things more seriously, and especially people in the media. The media should take seriously what the ANC seriously intends. But unfortunately, we find that this doesn't happen. So the ANC operates according to the principle of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Well, we know, of course, that Ramaphosa said that this is a process whereby the frog is boiled incrementally.
So I'm just going to stop that for a minute. And this is something that you guys may have heard or may not have heard. But Henry Kissinger said, who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware that, Bill Gates recently set off a ton of red flags with a massive farmland grab. While Americans are being told by Great Reset, techno-rats they're called, the future is one with private property. Bill Gates and other billionaires have been buying up land in huge amounts, farmland. And right now, Bill Gates is the biggest farmland owner in the United States, according to a Forbes report. After years of reports that he was purchasing agricultural land in places like Florida and Washington, land reports reveal that Gates, who has a net worth of nearly $121 billion, has built up massive farmland portfolio spanning 18 states. His largest holdings are in Louisiana with 69,071 acres, Arkansas, 47,927 acres, and Nebraska, 20,588 acres. Additionally, he has a stake in 25,750 acres of transitional land on the west side of Phoenix, Arizona, which is being developed as a new suburb. So he now owns 242,000 acres of farmland across the U.S., mostly through third-party entities and his own personal investment vehicle, which is Cascade Investments. I don't expect that this video may stay up. And you know, if you have parties that are interested in this, which I think that we all should be interested in what's happening. We should question some of these things that are taking place. We should remember the purpose of journalism, and that we should do our due diligence to really look at what's happening and any kind of crisis that we are currently experiencing that could push us into a place that would make this Marxist agenda a reality. Because, you know, looking at who the Free Market Foundation is, Southern Africa, it's an independent public organization that was founded in 1975 to promote and foster an open society, the rule of law, personal liberty, and economic and press freedom as fundamental components of its advocacy of human rights and democracy based on classical liberal principles. Now, you guys know that, you know, I'm trying to kind of stay middle of the road here, but there's these things that are coming in. And it was established to counter the steadily increasing intervention in the economic world by the government. And so when we go back and we look at that video and it says, well, why are we questioning our government? I think that we sometimes forget that our government is supposed to be working for we, the people. And so I think that I'm going to leave you guys with that, because this is a lot to chew on. And if you go back onto the page, you're going to see that there are links there that are going to take you to some of these places. Do your own due diligence. And, you know, again, share this video. We want to educate people. There is some entertainment with some great memes on here, because really, if you look at this, you know, stuff, it's serious. It's serious in nature. We should be taking it seriously. We do want to pull out the truth in what is being labeled as conspiracy. And I want you to understand that just because something is labeled as conspiracy in October doesn't mean that it's not going to be true on January 20th, 21st, 22nd. And as we continue to go through and we see that the mainstream media is calling these things conspiracy, and then they are coming to fruition, we're not seeing redactions. We're not seeing clarification. We're not seeing these news outlets that said, you know, these lies that we're clearly able to see Joe Biden has brought in an Obama team. You know, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying that if you look at what's happening and you're looking at who is feeding us this information, you can definitely see that there is a lack of truth in journalism. And so we'll probably be back later this evening. We do not have a set schedule, so I would highly recommend that you turn on your notifications. I have been notified that a couple other people have been knocked off of Facebook, and I realize that many people are jumping ship to other areas. In the notes here on YouTube, I will put in a link for our Telegram group where we're sharing a lot of things that are happening. Later this evening, I am going to be talking about what I had witnessed last night on Flight Track Radar, which is basically live air traffic. And again, this is where truth and conspiracy, you know, collide. And if somebody had just sent this to me and just it was a screenshot, screen grab, which is what I did, and then presented to me, I would question it. But the fact that I saw it with my own two eyes, and that it is alluding to, we're talking about this land grab and China, and also, again, China being very ecstatic about what's happening as far as the change in leadership, I think we need to be aware of what's going on. And so with that being said, I just want to thank Marge for being in here. I know that she's been silent, but she's also, she's got also commitments that she needs to take care of. But we're going to come back in later on this evening, put on your notifications, share this out. And I started a brand new channel. One of them had gotten deleted. So this may be on my Honey Fritz versus the Dear Cat. We're seeing a lot more of that. We're seeing a lot of censorship. And it's not just about, sharing out things that are going to be, controversial. All of this stuff is controversial. And the reality is if I were to come out here and talk about parenting or anything else, I'm going to have lots of people that disagree with me. A lot of people that are going to think either that I'm not qualified or whatever the case may be. But this has been put on my heart because I love the truth. And I want people to know the truth. And I do not, see that being portrayed in our media at this time. I don't expect us to see a lot of truth in journalism, which is unfortunate. And there are a lot of things that are happening that are backtracking right now. Just even in the first, 3 days here, we're seeing a lot of backpedaling and a lot of things that we have accomplished that are now being negated. And so thank you guys for watching. Please put your notifications on, come back, follow us on the Dear Cat Show on Facebook, and subscribe. If you're here on YouTube, please subscribe. And we will be talking to you guys again really soon.